I just got through reading The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. Have you ever felt called out and validated at the same time? I'll be honest with you, I read this book out of spite. On TikTok, I had a classic black man taints entire message with anti-black sentiment as I tried to discuss the childhood abuse without being triggered. It didn't go well. And no, I'm not going to show you the clip because honestly, I'm too embarrassed, and I'm just going to pray that you will pray to your respective deity that one day it's going to all go away and I'll never have to see it again. I temporarily allowed myself to become the type of black man I hated and feared so much. Now I feel like I'm in a place that I've been in too many times in my life. I feel like no matter what I do, no matter what I say, it won't matter because there are people who will never forgive me. And right now, I'm one of those people because I feel like I need to do something to earn that forgiveness. As I thought about the controversy I started, I felt a sense of defiance. I know that what I said and how I said it was wrong. At the time, I felt like it was the only way in the world to reach the type of black man I worry about constantly. The one who's growing up living in a situation that is all too common, and one who is being influenced by a variety of different sources, all designed to socialize him into the next prop for a system which seeks to destroy him or have him destroy himself. I spoke with a very popular black TikTok therapist. It was one of those calls where you already prepare yourself for how you think it might go. One of our problems as black men who feel adjacent is that we approach situations thinking we already know how they'll go and then unconsciously do things to make that happen. We do have more power in situations than we think. My experience with being corrected by black people, men specifically, in the past hasn't been great. I feel like we don't know how to correct each other in love because we think it's gay. And I know that to be openly and authentically gay in the black community is sometimes to be vilified constantly and to be in danger of bodily harm. As this creator sat as my enlightened witness, I came up with a variety of justifications and explanations for my words, which were adequate for the information I had at the time, until I read this book and found out exactly why I said what I did. As we talked, the creator asked me if I had any black friends, and I honestly didn't know what type of black he was talking about. I've always felt black adjacent. I know that many people speak of code switching or presenting yourself at the appropriate level of black needed to survive our interactions with our white counterparts. Being black adjacent, I felt like I needed to code switch around other black people. When I got home, I Googled their name, Bell Hooks, and saw a wealth of writings. I read many of the titles, and The Will to Change stuck out to me because it reminded me of a book by Daigo, a famous fighting game player. As I prepared to read the book, a familiar feeling of defiance took over me again. I began having such thoughts as this book is just going to blame the patriarchy and not hold parents accountable. This book is just going to blame the problem on the very men I so desperately want to reach. This book is not for me. I also wanted to prove that I was right. And I know I can't do that without evidence, so I began reading out of spite. I don't know if you've ever read out of spite before, but it's a great way to read an entire book in a few hours. When I first started reading, I was so angry because the preface was titled About Men, and I thought to myself, oh, here we go. Then I was struck into silence at the compassion and empathy that she spoke with and vulnerability about her own struggles with understanding men and her negative beliefs about them. She centered the conversation around an experience that I knew. I did not expect, nor did I feel like I deserved to be seen in that way. I felt overjoyed as I listened to her speak in plain language about the experiences one can have growing up in the environment that I did. She talked about issues that I felt like no one knew existed. She even used language that I'm afraid to repeat because of how it might be taken, which was honestly very refreshing. It's been some time since I've read an entire book in a day. It's scary for me to think about calling out the patriarchy, especially when I think about how much I profit from acting as if it doesn't exist. I don't just mean financially. Not understanding the system in which we live and how it affects the decisions we make allowed me to feel comfortable placing the blame at the feet of the act of spanking and the spanking parent, instead of a system where spanking is a logical conclusion to protect your children. It can seem that the switch to placing blame squarely at the feet of the system of existence we operate under is not to acknowledge the pain and suffering caused by the experiences with parents in our youth. You can both acknowledge the pain caused by mom, dad, or whomever, while at the same time holding accountable the system of living that drives people to do the things they do. You can also hold accountable the people that did things to you in your life. It doesn't excuse their behavior. It just provides much needed context to make sure your anger is well informed. I will admit I still have some resistance to the idea. And I know that resistance is the last bit of conditioning because understanding the patriarchy is to know why I said what I said. And I don't feel like I deserve the context. It feels like an excuse to say, I said what I said because I held a belief that made me feel like the good from what I said outweighed the bad. However, Rabbi Harold Kushner writes, patriarchy encourages men to surrender and live lives of denial. By learning the art of compartmentalization, dissimulation, and dissociation, men are able to see themselves as acting in integrity in cases when they are not. Their learned state of psychological denial is severe. I don't want to surrender to the idea that the decisions and choices I made in my life may not have been entirely my own. Patriarchal masculinity demands that I remain sure of myself, project strength, and find justifications for past behaviors, because to apologize is to admit fault, and to admit fault is not manly. It seems like a cop-out then to invoke the patriarchy as a contributing factor to my decision-making. I want to take all the responsibility because I feel like I need to earn my forgiveness. There have been so many times in my life where elders have lied, cheated, and made horrible mistakes, only to say, I'm sorry, the devil made me do it, and then they have no accountability for their actions. I remember wanting more than accountability, though. I wanted them to suffer. I wanted them to understand the pain they caused me thoroughly and feel that same pain, and then a little more. I wanted revenge, which is also part of why I said what I said. There's a dominant black culture that I used to believe regularly excludes black men and women and people like me. There are experiences they have that are not my experiences. I don't know what it's like to be hyped up by your black friends. I don't know what it's like to watch your black friends freak out because you did a dance move. I don't know what it's like to have a supportive community of black people to whom I can reach out and interact. That's also part of why I said what I said. I had no one to tell me differently. And yet I'm still having trouble forgiving myself. Instead of forgiveness, I just keep asking myself questions I can't answer. I think, how could you have been so ignorant, so willfully ignorant? Did you really think you were so Hollywood that you can just say stuff like that and there would be no response? And as much of a cop-out as it might seem, the truth is not having this visceral understanding of what the patriarchy is, without ever seeing it in black and white, my experience validated, being angry, and not having an abundance of black friends all came together to get me to a headspace where I rationalized my decision. So forgiveness looks like not continually whipping myself by asking rhetorical questions, checking to make sure I understand the influences on my decision, and owning that I made a decision and working to mitigate its effects. I'm currently on stage 2 because I have another book to read. Thank you all for being here with me on this journey. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow.